The table is 11 feet long. I know, because I measured it the first time I carried it up from the basement. Patricia directed, I measured, she approved. That was 1993. We've carried it up every November since, 31 times, except this year. This year I carried it up alone. Before I tell you about that, let me tell you about her. Because you need to know who Patricia Marsh is before you can understand what this table means, what it's always meant, what it cost her to build it, and what it cost me not to fully see it for 31 years. My name is Leonard Marsh, 67 years old, retired from the United States Postal Service after 33 years walking the same routes in Millersburg, Ohio. I know every street in this town, every porch, every name on every mailbox. I thought I knew everything worth knowing. Then October came, and Patricia had her stroke, and I found the binder. And I realized I didn't know half of what I thought I knew. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this story travels, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just about a Thanksgiving table in a small Ohio town. It's about what it looks like when someone loves a community so quietly and so completely that the people closest to her almost missed it entirely. Almost. I met Patricia in the spring of 1986. Church potluck, First Baptist, on Crawford Street. She was standing at the dessert table arguing politely with my mother about whether pecan pie required corn syrup, or whether that was, and I'm quoting Patricia directly here, a shortcut dressed up as tradition. My mother held her ground. Patricia held hers harder. I stood there holding a paper plate thinking, I need to know this woman's name. Her name was Patricia Ann Holloway, 26 years old, elementary school music teacher, originally from Coshocton, 20 miles east. Moved to Millersburg the previous September and had already, in 7 months, become someone this town couldn't imagine being without. I didn't know that last part yet. I was still just looking at her across the dessert table thinking about pecan pie. We were married 14 months later, May 1988, First Baptist. Same church where she'd argued about corn syrup with my mother. My mother cried at the wedding. She told me afterward, Leonard, that woman is going to be the best thing that ever happened to this family. She was right. She was more right than either of us knew. The table started the second Thanksgiving of our marriage, 1989. Patricia's idea. Always Patricia's idea. She'd heard that old Earl Mitchum 2 streets over was spending Thanksgiving alone. Earl was 74, widower, no family nearby. We're inviting him, Patricia said. Like it was obvious, like the question had already been answered before I asked it. We have a table for 4, I said. Then we'll need a bigger table, she said. And that was that. That was always that with Patricia. She identified something that needed doing, and she did it. No announcement, no credit sought. No waiting for someone else to step up first. She just did it. For 31 years. I know that now. I wish I'd known it better then. The stroke happened on a Tuesday, October 14th. Patricia was in the kitchen making coffee. I heard the cup hit the floor before I heard her. I won't describe those first hours. Some things belong only to the people who lived them. What I will tell you is this. She survived. She's here. Her mind, completely intact. Her speech back within days. What the stroke took was her stamina, her ability to stand for long stretches, to carry things, to run a kitchen for 8 hours straight the way she had every November for 3 decades. The doctor was kind about it, clear but kind. She can attend, Dr. Reeves told me. She should not host. I drove home and sat in the driveway for 20 minutes. Patricia was not going to like that. Patricia was going to fight it, and for once in 36 years of marriage, I was going to win. That evening I walked in and said it straight. I'm doing Thanksgiving. Patricia looked at me from her chair. Long pause. Leonard. Patricia, you burned the green beans at Easter. I was distracted. By what? The game. She gave me the look.
36 years I'd been on the receiving end of that look, the one that said, "I love you completely, and you are also occasionally a disaster." "I'll help you," she said finally. "You'll supervise." Same thing. It really isn't. She almost smiled. In Patricia language, that meant fine, for now. 2 days later, I went to the basement. Turkey pan, folding chairs, card tables for overflow. And then, third shelf, behind the roasting pan and a box of Christmas ornaments. A 3-ring binder. Dark green, worn at the corners, her handwriting on the front, black marker. Thanksgiving. I almost put it back. It wasn't mine. She'd never mentioned it. 36 years, and this binder had never come up once. But I needed to know what I was working with. So I opened it. First section, practical, expected. Shopping lists by store, recipes with margin notes, timing schedules in 30-minute blocks starting at 6 in the morning. Turkey in at 7, check at 10, based every 45 minutes. Pie crust, make night before, never morning of. Coffee, start second pot before first is finished or Earl complains. I smiled at that last one. Earl Mitchum. Been coming since 1989. 92 now. Still complained about the coffee. Then I turned to the second section, and I stopped smiling. Not because something was wrong, because something was more than I expected. Much more. The second section was a guest list. Not just names, notes. 31 years of notes, Patricia's handwriting, every person who'd ever sat at our table. Not just who they were, what they were carrying. Earl Mitchum, widower, arrives early, needs to feel useful. Give him something to do. Put him in charge of the rolls. Donna and Gary Spector. Gary lost his job at the plant in 2009. Won't talk about it. Ask him about his woodworking. The Kowalski family. Marcus lost his brother in 2019. First Thanksgiving without him. Watch Marcus. If he goes quiet, check on him. Young woman from Sophia's class, Emily, 23. New to Millersburg, no family nearby. Seat her next to Gloria. Gloria will take care of her. Page after page. 31 years of people. 31 years of Patricia paying attention. I sat down on the basement floor, binder open across my knees, thinking about every Thanksgiving I'd spent carving that turkey, watching the game, laughing with the neighbors, thinking I understood what made that table work. I didn't understand anything, not even close. I brought the binder upstairs, set it on the kitchen table. Patricia was in the living room. I could hear the television, the afternoon news, low volume. Patricia? How long have you had that binder in the basement? Which binder? The green one, with Thanksgiving on the front. A while, she said. How long is a while? Leonard. Patricia. She turned from the television and looked at me with those eyes that had been reading me accurately for 36 years. Did you read it? I read it. She nodded slowly, like she'd always known this moment would come eventually. Then you know, she said simply. I'm starting to, I told her. Let me take you back, because the binder only told me part of it. The rest I had to remember. 2004. A woman named Carolyn Briggs started coming to our table. Mid-30s, 2 kids. Quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. The kind of quiet that comes from somewhere harder. I remember thinking she seemed tense, watchful. I remember Patricia putting her at the far end of the table, away from the noise, close to the back door. And I thought that was just Patricia managing the seating the way she always did. I didn't think about why. I do now. The binder told me why. Carolyn, difficult situation at home, knows she can leave the table whenever she needs to. Back door always unlocked, no questions asked. I read that 3 times. Patricia had positioned Carolyn Briggs within reach of an exit at every Thanksgiving for 4 years, until Carolyn didn't need it anymore. I was carving the turkey 10 feet away, and I never once knew it. 2009. The year half the county was out of work after the plant closures. Patricia added 7 new names to the table. I got more chairs. That was my contribution. I didn't ask who the new people were. The binder told me more. 3 of those 7 families were people Patricia had specifically sought out because she'd heard they were struggling and too proud to ask. She didn't invite them as charity. She invited them as neighbors. There's a note beside each name. Don't make them feel like guests. Make them feel like they've always been here. I stood in that kitchen reading page after page, thinking about a word: architecture. The invisible structure that holds everything up, the thing you never see until it isn't there. Patricia had been the architecture of this table for 31 years, and I had been walking through the rooms she built, warm, fed, surrounded by people who loved being there, without once stopping to look at the walls. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked her that night. "Because you would have helped, Leonard," she said. "That's a reason not to tell me? You would have helped in the way you help, Leonard. You would have organized it, made it efficient, assigned it." She looked at me gently, not unkindly. What I was doing didn't work that way. It needed to be felt, not managed. And you, she paused, a small smile, are a wonderful manager. I should have been offended. I wasn't, because she was right, and because the way she said it, wonderful manager, sounded in Patricia's voice like the most loving thing anyone had ever called me.
The guest list had 43 names. Not all came every year. Some had moved, some had passed. Some had built their own tables by now. Patricia noted those with a small star, just one word beside it: good. That stopped me for a long time. She wasn't building dependency, she was building capacity, giving people a table until they could build their own, then celebrating when they did. I started calling people on the list, 1 or 2 a day, letting them know about the stroke, finding out who was coming, and, if I'm being honest, needing to hear what she'd been to them. I called Gloria first. Gloria Hendricks, 78 years old, widow, north side of Millersburg. Raised 4 kids in the same house, all scattered now across 3 different states. Been coming to our table since 2005. Patricia's note beside her name. Gloria lost Robert in March, first Thanksgiving alone in 51 years. She won't ask for anything. Invite her before she has a chance to say she's fine. I didn't know that's how it started. I thought Gloria had just always been there. Phone rang 3 times. Leonard. The way she said my name, something between relief and love and 19 years of Thursdays in November. Gloria, how are you? I heard about Patricia. How is she? She's fighting. She's home. She'll be at the table Thursday. Silence. Then, oh, thank God. Not polite, not surface. Real relief, the deep kind. I told her I was running the table this year. Another silence. You, she said carefully. You're doing it. Me. Leonard, sweetheart. I know, Gloria. Do you have the binder? I almost laughed. You know about the binder? Every woman who ever helped Patricia knows about the binder. I sat with that. Every woman who ever helped Patricia. Of course there were others. Of course she hadn't done it entirely alone. She just made sure she was never the one taking credit. Tell me about the binder, I said. Gloria talked for 40 minutes. I wrote down everything. She told me about the year Patricia drove to Coshocton at 6 in the morning to pick up a woman named Ruth whose car had broken down so Ruth wouldn't miss the table. She told me about the young man who showed up alone one year, mid-20s, clearly struggling, not sure he should have knocked. Patricia put him between Gloria and Earl. By the time the pie came out, he was laughing like he'd been coming for years. She told me about 2017. Patricia had a bad flu, the kind of sick that should have meant canceling. She ran the table anyway.
Gloria and 2 other women tried to take over the kitchen. Patricia let them help, but she never left the head of the table. She said to me, Gloria told me, "Gloria, these people drove here. They need to eat. They need to feel like they belong somewhere. I can be sick later." I put the pen down. Gloria? Did she know how much it meant? Long pause on the line. "Leonard, honey," she said it gently. "Patricia knew everything. She just never needed you to know she knew." I hung up, sat in the quiet kitchen, looked at the 11-foot table leaning against the dining room wall, already up from the basement, already waiting. Thought about 31 years of Thursdays. What she saw that I missed, what she carried that I didn't know she was carrying, and what I owed her. Not debt, love. The specific, staggering, humbling love of a man who has just been shown, fully, without warning, exactly who he married.
I made a list. Patricia always made lists. Seemed like the right place to start. Mine had 14 items. She added 31 more. "You forgot the cranberry sauce." I was going to buy it. "From a can?" "From a can." She looked at me. "Leonard, Patricia, it tastes the same." "It does not taste the same. It tastes, if you serve canned cranberry sauce at my table, I will get out of this chair and make it myself." I bought the cranberries. I called Denny, our son, 38, Columbus, 2 hours south. "Dad, you're doing it alone? Your mother will supervise." "Dad, Denny, you burned the green beans at Easter." "The green beans were going to follow me to my grave. I am aware of the green beans. Are you coming or not?" He came. Tuesday evening. Karen and the kids with him. Robbie, 11, May, 8. Karen walked into the kitchen, looked around once, and started reorganizing the refrigerator without being asked. I could have kissed her. Patricia held court from the armchair. We'd moved it to the kitchen doorway. Her position all week. Close enough to see everything, close enough to step in, far enough that she wasn't technically hosting. She was absolutely hosting. She just wasn't standing up while she did it. Tuesday night, pie crusts. "Butter has to be cold," she said from her chair. "Actually cold, not room temperature. The butter is cold. Is it actually cold, or do you just think it's cold?" I held it up for inspection. She squinted. "It's acceptable." From Patricia, acceptable was practically a standing ovation. Wednesday, 7 calls still to make, including one name in the binder I didn't recognize at all. Anita. No last name, just Anita. And a note. "Anita finds big gatherings difficult. Call the week before. Let her decide on the day. Never pressure. If she comes, seat her at the end closest to the hallway." I called. I picked up on the second ring. "Hello? Anita, this is Leonard Marsh, Patricia's husband." Long pause. "Is she okay?" The way she asked that, like Patricia's well-being was something deeply personal to her. I told her about the stroke, about the table, about Patricia being there. Another pause. "I'll be there," she said quietly. "Tell her I'll be there." I told Patricia that evening. She closed her eyes for a moment. "Good," she said softly. "Good." I didn't ask why. I had learned something from that binder. Some things Patricia carried quietly, and the right response wasn't always a question. Sometimes it was just good. Thursday morning, gray and cold, classic Ohio November. Up at 5:30. Patricia was already awake. Found her in the kitchen table in her robe, binder open in front of her, reading her own notes the way you'd read something you wrote a long time ago. "You're supposed to be resting. I'm sitting down. Patricia, Leonard, come sit with me." I sat across from her. Kitchen quiet, house still. Denny and Karen and the kids asleep upstairs. She slid the binder across the table toward me. "This year," she said, "you're the one who knows what everyone needs." She looked at me steady. "Don't manage it. Feel it." I put my hand over hers. "I'll try," I said. She squeezed once. "That's all that ever was," she told me.
First knock, 11:15. Earl Mitchum, 92 years old, still drove himself, a fact that terrified everyone who knew him and that Earl treated as proof of his general superiority over the concept of aging. He stood on the porch in his good coat and his good hat. handed me a tin of hard candies, same as every year since 1989. "How's she doing?" "She's in the living room. She's waiting for you." He walked past me like I wasn't there. In the context of this table, that was entirely appropriate. I gave Earl the rolls, binder instruction. He took his post at the breadbasket with the seriousness of a man who had been given meaningful work, which is exactly what it was. They came steadily after that. The Kowalskis, Marcus and Lena, daughter in tow, covered dish that Lena refused to identify until dinner. The Spector family. Gary shook my hand at the door. I asked about the rocking chair he'd been making in his garage. His face opened up, the way faces do when someone asks about the right thing. Patricia's note. Working. Donna Whitfield, 71. Walked with a cane she pretended not to need. "Where's my Patricia?" "Living room. She's been asking about you." Anita arrived at 12:30. I met her at the door myself. Small, careful in how she moved. Eyes that scanned a room before she fully entered it. "Anita, I'm Leonard. We spoke on the phone." She looked at me, evaluated, decided something. "She told me about you," Anita said. "She said you were a good man who just needed to slow down enough to notice things." I stood in my own doorway with that landing on me. "She's right," I said, finally. "She's usually is." I took her coat, showed her to the end seat closest to the hallway, just like the binder said. She sat down, exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding something in on the drive over and had finally put it down. The strangers arrived at 1 o'clock. Young couple, late 20s. He had a bottle of wine. She had a casserole dish held in both hands. They both had the look of people not entirely sure they had the right house. "We heard about this from Marcus Kowalski," the young man said. He said, "Come in," I said. "We don't want to intrude." Patricia's rule. I said it before I thought about it. No one who comes to this door on Thanksgiving goes home. 31 years of Patricia, finding its way into my mouth. The young woman's eyes filled. "Thank you," she said quietly. I brought them inside, set 2 more places. 45 people, 11-foot table, card tables in the hallway, chairs borrowed from 3 neighbors. I stood in the doorway and looked at it all. All these people, all these lives she had touched, tended, welcomed, seen. She built a whole world here, a quiet, warm, 11-foot world, and I'd been living in it for 31 years without understanding how it was made. I was checking the turkey when Denny appeared. "Dad, there's a man at the door." "Send him in." "I don't think he's on the list." "Send him in anyway." "He's Denny, Patricia's rule." The man who walked into my kitchen was around 50. Well-dressed, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who had carried heavy things for a long time and had gotten good at it. He was holding a pie, lemon meringue. He stood in the doorway and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite name, somewhere between gratitude and something older than that. "Mr. Marsh, I'm James Okafor." I didn't recognize the name. He saw that immediately. "She never told you about me," he said. Not a question. "I'm sorry, how do you know Patricia?" He looked down at the pie, then back up. "Is she here?" "Living room." "May I?" I watched from the doorway. James crossed the room to her chair, bent down, said something I couldn't hear. Patricia looked up at him. Her face, the face I'd been reading for 36 years, did something I rarely saw it do. It went soft. Not the way it went soft for me, not for Denny or the grandkids. The softness of a woman who did something a long time ago that mattered, and was seeing the proof of it standing right in front of her. She took his hand in both of hers. He sat beside her. They talked for 10 minutes. I didn't go in. He found me in the kitchen after. "Can I tell you something?" "Please." He set the pie on the counter. 2011. My business failed. He said it flat, clean. Not a slow failure, a fast one. 3 months from solvent to gone. 7 employees, a mortgage.
My wife was pregnant with our second. Pause. I was past what I could manage. Past it. I came to Millersburg to see my cousin, just to get out of Columbus for a few days. He brought me here, to this table. I sat across from your wife. She didn't ask what happened, didn't ask how bad it was. She just talked to me about regular things. Millersburg, the food, the weather. She made me feel like a person, not a problem. 2 days later, I got a letter, no return address. Inside, information about a small business recovery program, one I'd never heard of, one I qualified for. 18 months later, I used it to restart. He looked directly at me. I never knew for certain it was her, not until today, not until I walked in and saw her face. I gripped the counter. She sent it. Not a question. She sent it, he said quietly. We stood there. 2 men in a kitchen, both held up by the same woman in completely different ways. I just needed her to know it worked, James said, that we're okay. He looked toward the living room, that the table mattered. I looked at the 11 feet of worn oak, 45 people, mismatched chairs, borrowed tablecloths, every one of them with their own version of this story. It always mattered. She always knew it did. He nodded. Does she know that you know? I thought about the binder, about Gloria, about Patricia at 5:30 that morning reading her own notes. She's starting to, I said.
We sat down at 2 o'clock, all 47 of us. 2 more had arrived before dinner. Word had traveled through Marcus somehow. Patricia's rule, Leonard's voice now too. Denny carved the turkey. I had offered. He looked at the turkey, looked at me, took the knife from my hand with the quiet authority of a son who loves his father and has seen the green beans. Fair enough. The table was loud, wonderfully, completely loud. The specific noise of 47 people finding their seats, reaching for the bread basket, asking someone 3 chairs over to pass the butter, laughing at something nobody else fully heard. I'd heard that noise every November for 31 years. I'd never really listened to it. It sounded exactly the way it always had, because Patricia was at the head of it, smaller than usual, a little slower, a little quieter, but at the head of it, where she had always been, where she would always be, as long as she had breath in her body and a chair to sit in. And I was going to make sure she had both for as long as God was willing to cooperate. I watched her all through dinner. Couldn't stop. The way she listened to Earl, nodding at exactly the right moments, asking the one question that made him feel heard. The way she caught Anita's eye from across the table, held it just long enough to say, "You belong here. You always belonged here." The way she leaned over and said something quiet to the young woman from the couple who'd arrived with the wine, and I watched that young woman's shoulders drop half an inch. Whatever she'd carried in with her, some of it let go. All of this from a chair, all of this without standing up. The architecture, still holding, still perfect, just visible to me now. Finally visible. May had made herself Patricia's official assistant for the day, refilled her water glass every 4 minutes whether it needed it or not, reported back on the rolls with complete seriousness. Grandpa Earl says there are enough, but his face looks worried. Patricia received this with equal seriousness. Tell Earl the second batch is coming out in 10 minutes. May relayed this intelligence immediately. Earl's face relaxed. The rolls arrived on time. Order was maintained. Somewhere between dinner and pie, I looked down the full length of that table. All those faces, all that noise and warmth, and I felt something I don't have a precise word for. Not pride,
not gratitude. Something more like awe. The specific awe of a man who has spent 36 years beside greatness and is only now, at 67, at this table, on this Thursday, beginning to understand the full size of it. "You're staring," Patricia said quietly. "I know. At me. At you." She looked at her plate. Small smile. "Stop it." "I'm not going to." She picked up her fork. The smile stayed. It was Marcus who stood up, between dinner and dessert. That particular stillness of a full table, food finished, nobody wanting to move. Marcus Kowalski, 54 years old, hardware store on Main Street, 11 years at this table. Quiet man, the kind of quiet that comes from steadiness. He pushed back his chair and stood. Lena looked up at him. She knew. She reached up and took his hand briefly before he let go. The table noticed. Conversations dropped. "I'm sorry to interrupt." He looked at Patricia. "I need to say something. Most of you know us. 11 years we've been coming here. What most of you don't know, what we never told anyone, is why we started." He stopped, steadied himself. 3 years before we first came, Lena and I went through something that almost ended us. Not our marriage, us individually. The table was completely still, even the children. We lost a son. Simple, flat, the way people say the truest things. He was 4 days old. His name was Thomas. Lena's hand went to her mouth. We didn't tell people. We came back to our lives, and we carried it the way you do when you don't have the language for it yet, when you don't want to put it on anyone else. He looked at Patricia. Somehow, I still don't know how, Patricia knew. She called Lena in January of 2013, 2 years after. Just called, said she'd been thinking about her, asked if she'd like to come to Thanksgiving. Pause. Lena said yes before I finished my sentence. That first year, I watched this table, watched what it did to people, how they came in carrying whatever they were carrying, and how by the end of the night, some of it was lighter. Not gone, but lighter. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, pulled out an envelope, set it on the table in front of Patricia. Inside is a donation to whatever Patricia thinks this town needs most. Because we have been coming here 11 years, and we have never once been able to repay what this table gave us. His voice held, barely. We wanted the room to know the woman at the head of this table is the reason some of us are still standing. Silence. A long moment of it. Then Earl Vitcham, 92 years old, keeper of the rolls, the original guest, started to clap, and one by one, the whole table joined him. I looked at Patricia. She was looking at her plate, jaw set, the way it set when she was holding something in. I put my hand over hers. She turned her hand over and held mine. Didn't look up, didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Later, after the pie, after the slow, reluctant leaving of 47 people back into the Ohio November, I found the envelope still on the table. She'd written one word on it, her handwriting. Gloria. They left the way they always left. Slowly, reluctantly, with the leftover containers Patricia had labeled and prepared, small portions for people who didn't have much waiting for them at home, tucked under their arms. Hugs at the door. Same time next year. 20 different people said it. I heard it differently this year. Each time someone said it, I looked at Patricia, in her chair by the door, holding each hand a moment longer than necessary, and I felt the weight of it. Same time next year. God willing. Please. By 7, the house was quiet. Denny and Karen and the kids had gone to her parents for the evening. May had kissed Patricia 6 times before she left. Promised she'd be back tomorrow for the leftovers. "I'll save you the good ones," Patricia said. May considered this carefully, decided it was acceptable. I cleaned the kitchen. Patricia sat by the window, watching the street, dark and cold now, that specific Ohio November dark that settles early and stays. I washed dishes the way I'd learned to do things this week. Not efficiently, just present. When I finished, I made 2 cups of tea, brought them to the living room. Patricia had the binder of her lap, not reading it, just holding it, the way you hold something that's been part of your hands for a long time. I sat in my chair across from her. We drank our tea. The house settled around us. "Patricia." "I need to say something." She waited. "I have loved you for 36 years, and today I realized I didn't know the half of what I was loving." She looked at the window, the dark Ohio street. "You knew enough," she said. "Not nearly." She turned back to me. Those eyes, the ones that had been reading me since 1986, since pecan pie and corn syrup and a potluck on Crawford Street. Bright now. "Then we'll have to make sure you learn the rest," she said. I reached across and took her hand, held it the way you hold something you are not willing to lose. "We'll need time," I said. "We have time," she said. Firm, certain. Not a hope, a fact. The way Patricia said everything worth saying. The table was still up, 11 feet of worn oak in the dining room. I hadn't taken it down. I wasn't ready. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, or maybe I'd just leave it up this year. Leave it where Patricia could see it, where we could both see it. A reminder of what a good woman builds when nobody's watching, and what a lucky man finds when he finally slows down enough to look. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something. Is there a Patricia in your life? Someone building something beautiful, quietly, completely, without asking for a single word of recognition? A mother, a wife, a grandmother, someone who just does it. Drop her name in the comments. Just, "This is my mom. This is my wife. This was my grandmother, and I miss her every single day." Because those women deserve to be named out loud. They deserve to be seen. And if you are Patricia, if you're the one who needed to hear this today, it is noticed. Maybe not yet by the right person, but it is noticed, and it matters more than you know. Hit that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe to Steph and Steve. This is what we do here. We tell the stories that don't get told anywhere else. Goodbye for now.